Welcome to the WanderLearn show. I'm here with Charles Veley, the most traveled man ever. For those who are watching on video, MTP stands for most traveled person.
People. Yeah, most of it's all of us. It's a community. We're 30,000 people.
Whatever. Yes, you're right. Of course you're right, because he started this organization. For those who are in the know, there's 193 UN countries, and you went to all of them.
I went to all of them about 20 years ago, yeah.
Right, and so you were bored out of your fucking mind. And you said, now what? Mars? Moon? And you're like, well, then you learned about TCC, which stands for?
TCC is the Travelers Century Club. And I was in the middle of just sort of traveling. I didn't care about 193, which is the number of UN countries. Right. But I found this list from TCC. And that was over 300 places.
Now he's busy.
and the reason I thought that was excellent was because people are asking me how many countries have I been to. And I had been to, when I was 19 years old, I got to stop in Tahiti, French Polynesia. And is that the same thing as going to France?
Right.
No, but if you're using UN, that's the same thing. So there ought to be a better list.
Or Greenland, which is currently part of Denmark.
And we hope it remains that way. So I started following the TCC list, and I got addicted to travel that way.
Right, and then you completed the TCC.
I became the youngest person ever to complete the TCC.
How old were you at the time?
37, I believe.
37 when you finished the 330?
It was 327 places at that time.
Oh, they've added up. Okay.
Yeah, and so just a
now it's 330.
I think it's 330 right now. They added more things that I had already been to, but they added one that I hadn't been to. So my goal, actually, on this current trip, I came to South America to try and get my Venezuelan visa.
Okay. Because
Isla Margarita is the one that I don't have.
Okay.
And then I'll be the first person ever to complete TCC twice.
Amazing. And so then you said, okay, I'm checked off this list. I'm 37 years old.
Yep.
And now you're bored out of your mind once again.
I found more lists at that point. So I found that Guinness had maintained a separate list, and I found that the ham radio people had an extremely interesting list with more and more islands. And I thought, wow, TCC's like there's no wizard behind the curtain there. And with Guinness, there was no wizard there. It was like Wizard of Oz, because I went to their office and there was just one part-time law student who was managing the whole thing. It was like a charade. And so they said they couldn't adjudicate the category because there was no official arbiter, and the TCC said they couldn't be the official arbiter. So that's why I created MTP. I was a software guy. I said, we got to put all this stuff online, get all the people online, get the places online, and try and make some sense of this. And that's really why it got started.
Got it. Okay, and so then took it to a whole new level, because now MTP, most traveled people, is 1,500 locations.
Right. At first,
regions.
Exactly. We split up the land area of the world, which is what you do when you're saying I want to go everywhere. You just split it up. And the question is, how do you split it up? Well, the way I took it first was I just took the TCC, I took the Guinness, I took the ham radio, and I just merged them.
Got it.
Right? And whenever there was an overlap, I took the more granular, so smaller and smaller. So that came to, I think, 573. And then over the years, I had people voting first of all. And then that kind of descended into chaos, because everyone wanted to vote Switzerland into 35 places, but wouldn't touch Mongolia or Congo.
This is why we need to eliminate voting in America, because it descends to chaos. Democracy's overrated.
Right,
Come on, Charles.
Exactly. I remember an amazing guy, Alan Hogenauer, who was one of the great first, extreme travelers, and he said, Charles, can't we just have a benign dictatorship?
Exactly. Actually, I mean, between you and me and whoever else is listening, I mean, I do think that an enlightened despot like a Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, they actually produce the best results.
Best products,
because democracy is very sloppy and often yields to unsatisfactory results. But anyway, so continue.
So over the years, it kind of grew and grew as we looked at the world more and could identify more and more distinct regions. And most recently, we took all of the Nomad Mania regions and incorporated those. That was a huge technical exercise. So we had to wait a few years to actually, it's like a snake swallowing a goat, you know, it was just like, take that all in. So that is what brought it up to 1,500 now.
Got it, okay.
Yeah.
And by the way, we're filming here in Santiago, Chile. We're the tallest mountain. God, I only think in mountains. The tallest building in South America is behind us.
Yeah, and the tallest mountain is actually right there.
Yeah, Aconcagua. For those who are really geeky, they know about Nomad Mania, and they have their own list. What percentage overlap?
So Nomad Mania has 1,301 places. We have 1,500. And I would say most of the difference is in islands and island groups, or just enclaves and exclaves, the MTP oddities that that they just
like
don't.
Rockall?
Rockall is on the MTP list,
but not on Nomad Mania.
No.
See?
No.
So Rockall, folks, this is one of my favorite stories that Charles Veley has to say. It's this pathetic-looking spear that, like, it's a rock, but it's sticking out of the
North Atlantic.
North Atlantic, yeah, not far from. Well, it is kind of far from the UK.
Yeah, it is kind of far from the UK. It's kind of in between Iceland and North UK, Ireland. Scotland, they all dispute it because they want the oil and gas rights. Of course, that's why people care about these islands. But it's very isolated, and it just juts out there, and so it's very tempting to want to land on it. But it's sheer.
Yeah, it's sheer. It's very steep. And so, how old were you at the time when you went there?
That was 2008, so I would have been 43.
Okay, so 43 years old. He gets on a boat with a bunch of other nutheads, and they have only one wetsuit between, what, 6 of you?
Yeah, that's right. How do you remember this?
Because it's such an impressive story. It's the kind of thing I would do. So I was like, this is an awesome story. And then he takes the little Zodiac, which is a small little boat, and then Charles, in his wetsuit, jumps off the boat, tries to cling onto the island's vegetation, if you want to call it that, and then he manages to get a photo, and in 1 second after the photo, so you clung on the island for about maybe 3 seconds?
I was standing up. No, I hauled myself up. I was standing up.
Oh, okay.
I raised my arm, so I let go. And I raised my arms up and to cheer.
So you were,
that's why the wave hit me off. So otherwise, I could have hung on.
Okay, so it's a rogue wave, of course, which comes every 2 minutes.
No.
Every 2 seconds.
No, the waves are coming every 30 seconds.
Okay.
There was a 5-meter swell, so that's 15 feet.
Yeah.
Plus,
yeah.
And so that means the Zodiac can't get close at all because you'd be, fall 15 feet and get bashed against a rock. So you had to be in the surf, ride the wave up, grab, there was a skirt of kelp.
Right.
You had to grab the kelp and then cling on to, there was a kind of a ridge. There's sort of one place where you could get in there.
Right.
That's where I was standing up.
And then a nice wave came and knocked him off, and then he fell into the ocean. No, life jacket or, flotation device.
No, just the wetsuit.
Exactly.
And it was someone else's wetsuit who is much better shape than the rest of us. So
And it probably, you could have knocked your head on the rock, and that would have been the end of Charles Veley.
Yeah, it was just like the little wetsuit cap.
Right. Which is not going to protect you when you're getting slammed into a rock.
The guy that organized the tour was named Andy Strangeway.
Okay, that says everything right there.
And so we say 6 men land on Rockall in one wetsuit, courtesy of Strangeway Tours.
That was very poetic. But that was Strangeway the guy who got to the top?
No, Strangeway couldn't swim, it turns out. He calls himself.
And he organized it?
He organized it.
He can't swim.
He can't swim, and the reason he calls himself Island Man. And what we found, and so his goal was to sleep on all the islands surrounding Scotland. Okay, he's a Yorkshireman, and Yorkshiremen don't back down from a challenge. The guy was puking all the way back. It was so funny, but it turns out
he was on your boat?
He was on the boat, and he wanted to land. We were going to do all this mountaineering stuff, like someone was going to set up a line, and then
but then he realized that there was no way to get there without the risk of falling in the water and having to swim, and you had no flotation device.
Yeah. He didn't land, but but he said that he would go. But the reason he had become Island Man, we figured out, was because he went over to islands at at low tide and then got stranded and had to spend the night. So he basically failed in his hiking trips, and he turned that into his thing. I sleep on islands. And he must have gotten stranded like 2 or 3 times, and he said, I guess maybe I'll turn this into a thing. Yeah, I'm island man now.
Oh God.
But I can't swim. But he can't swim.
Can't swim off the island.
Yeah.
Oh God. Well.